Hey everybody, I'm Lisa and I'm here going live tonight with Choose Freedom. Thank you all for joining me. I'm just going to kind of chill here for a moment and wait for some people to start rolling in. If you're joining me now, I just want to say thank you and just going to give it a few minutes so we can wait for some more people. If you can start sharing this video, I'd greatly appreciate it. Like it, share it, get it out there for others to see. Get some people in here. Get liking the page, Choose Freedom as well. I want to do a shout out to my higher power for giving me the strength and courage to come on here this evening to share with you all my story. Also just want to give a huge shout out to William Murata and the rest of the crew at Choose Freedom for giving me this opportunity. Yeah, start sharing the video, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate it. Much love to each and every one of you. Just know that me being up here tonight is taking a lot of strength and courage. I've been just full of emotions today, but I have to do this. It's my duty to share with the world that we can overcome addiction. We can live a better way. So I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes here. Hi, Tracy. Get sharing this video, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let me know you're here with me. Give shout outs where you're from so I know what kind of people I have tuning in right now. It's always nice to see where people are from. Hey, Maria. Alright, so I'm going to get started here and just keep sharing this video as I go. So, for those of you who don't know me, I am Lisa, and I am a recovering addict of many sorts of drugs. And I kind of want to just go back to where I was born and raised so you can get a better understanding. So, I was born in Wyoming, 1980, and my real father was extremely abusive. He would lock me in closets. He was very violent and abusive to my mother. And at the young age of 3, my father murdered my aunt. So, at the age of 3, it was hard for me because I didn't know really anything except for I wasn't going to have a dad in my life, you know, so that happened, and time goes on a little bit. My mother meets a gentleman who later becomes my stepfather. I was around the age of 4, and we moved to Wisconsin. That's where I reside now, and everything, you know, seems to be going better. You know, he's a loving father, great guy, and we take a lot of trips and fishing, camping, really good to, you know, me, and treats me as if he was my father. And so I start going to school in a little town called Pittsville, and meet some friends, and everything seems to be going well. As time goes by, I later find out that my stepfather has a secret of his own, and he is into young females. Around the age of, I want to say it was 13 years old, he went to jail for sexually assaulting my babysitter. So he now was out of my life as well. So, anyways, my mother and my father started talking about getting divorced, and we moved, and they were going to separate for a while, and we moved to a place called Wisconsin Rapids. Well, this was about the age of 14, now after some time had passed, and one day, my stepfather comes to visit me, and he says, "Will you come spend the night with me. And, after what happened with him and my babysitter, I didn't want anything to do with him. So as far as I'm going to stay with him by myself. So I said, no, I'm sorry, and I would come visit him the next day. Well, next day rolls around, my mom and I show up there, and he had been working on his car. I get out of the car, and I walk up to him, and he's laying under the car. He had taken the tire off, so the way he was laying, the rotor, all there was the rotor, and he wasn't moving. I thought he was faking it when I saw him. But the rotor had come down on his neck and severed it. I screamed so loud, like we lived in the country, and I feel like people from miles probably heard me. So from this point forward, I was just confused. Like, I thought this was my fault. I blamed it on myself. Had I went to spend the night with him, this would not have happened. So I felt guilty. At this point, my mom and I were like trying to figure out what we were going to do. We ended up moving back into the house where we had found him, try to get things straightened out. And this is where it kind of started going downhill for me. Previously, prior to this happening, I had been on the honor roll in volleyball, getting involved in, sports, doing really well. After this happened, my life was turned upside down. So I met a guy who would become my high school sweetheart. And this is where I began just drinking and using drugs to escape from, all the trauma I had previously suffered. So my life just was flipped upside down, and I was drinking, smoking pot, doing acid. Right around the same time, I got involved in crime pretty heavily. At this point, Carol, I was probably, between the time I found him passed away, met my high school sweetheart, about 15. And then, so, him and I would just get wasted and drunk, and like I said, do a bunch of acid, and then at this point, he's kind of pressuring me to have sex with him because, we're a couple, and that's something a couple should do. And I finally gave in. And so basically every waking moment was just wake up, smoke pot, get drunk, have sex, go to sleep, rinse and repeat. My grades started failing. I eventually basically stopped going to school, only went when I felt like it. And I couldn't even keep my head together with everything that had happened. So this goes on for a while, and then we end up moving back. I move away again, move back to Rapids with my mom. She wants to get me away from everybody because she knows that she sees me going down this really bad path, and she wants to get me away from it. So we move, start at this new school where I meet some other people, and turns out I just find myself using even, more drugs. I'm doing cocaine, acid, shrooms, ecstasy, start going to rave parties, just anything you can imagine. One thing in particular that really stands out that still bothers me to this day that I have to get off my chest is one of my friends that I met through some other friends in high school. We had went to a Halloween party, and there was a lot of drugs being taken, and someone poured a liquid vial of acid in his cup, and he never came off the trip. He is permanently tripping to this day. I ended up seeing him in a psych ward, and that had bothered me for so long because I felt like that was my fault too. So anyways, I just kept drinking, smoking pot, continued my using, a lot of cocaine, a lot of acid, taking trips to Madison almost every other day, getting high, staying in hotels. But then I started robbing houses. We would rob houses for money, liquor, whatever we could find. Started robbing cars, taking things out of the cars, selling them. I even, at a couple points, stole my mom's checkbook and wrote some bad checks, as well as stole her credit card and used that. I'm sorry, this is hard. So that goes on for a little while, and of course, my mom finds out that I did this and stole her money, and she doesn't press charges on me, but I'm still getting caught up with other charges like batteries, domestic, that landed me on probation. I was always a pretty violent person. In all my relationships, I would physically abuse the guy I was dating. And when I say physically abuse, I mean I've broken their nose, busted their teeth. Just things that when I look in the mirror, I can't even imagine that being the person who I am. And so for all of the harm that I would do, I would just continue using more and more drugs to escape the reality of what I've done to everybody. I just kept digging a hole. So at some point I meet some guys who were at a mall, and I was with one of my good friends at the time. And they had invited us over to their hotel to get, wasted, do some cocaine, things like that. So we decided we'd go over there. Well, we end up arriving, and a little into the night, I am so wasted that I find myself like taking this knife and putting it in my mouth, thinking I'm being cool, like, oh, look at me, I'm showing off. And then one of the guys gets on the phone, and I hear him having a conversation about, hey, dude, we didn't kill this guy, and I'm just like, what's going on? I think this is a complete joke. Well, these guys, they're from Milwaukee, and they said, hey, can you give us a place to stay? We need somewhere to go for a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, I'm staying at this house, you can stay here with us. And so they come back, stay with us for a while. And then one night we decide, oh, well, let's get some vodka. So we go out, we're heading out to get some vodka. And all of a sudden, my car is just swarmed by police from every which way I can imagine. There probably was like 8 or more cop cars, and all I can remember was screaming, throw the keys out the window, get down on the ground, and they had guns pointing. Later, come to find out, these 2 guys did murder some people in Milwaukee over a bad coke deal. And again, I felt just horrible because I had been helping these guys out. Thankfully they, for me, said that I had nothing to do with it, and I didn't get in trouble. Ended up, the subpoena that was sent got called off, so they ended up in prison for murder. No idea to this day what's going on with them. Sometime after that, the guy I had been dating and staying with at the same house, we got into a big argument, and it was basically over this whole situation. And we walked to my car, and I took a hammer out, and I hit him over the head with it, busted my window out, and we were able to get in the car. We got in the car and I drove. And I made it probably, I don't even remember, 10 minutes away. And I took my wheel of the car and I swerved it and I flew out into the ditch. Basically trying to kill the both of us. So, turns out where this happened, one of my friends lived. He's like, "Hey Lisa, I'm sorry, but I gotta call the cops." He calls the cops on me, the cops arrive, and that would be what would become my first offense, OWI. So that guy and I end up splitting up, and I'm sent to Norwood. It's a mental health facility where I was kept for about a week, and they evaluated me. I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 with manic episodes, and amongst a few other things, which I have anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I'm a paranoid schizophrenic. So I stay there, and they deem that, I'm sentenced to probation, and then for my first offense, I get a pretty hefty fine. Well, a little while later, come January 2000, we're going to fast forward now, I end up at a party in another town with some friends, and I was wearing a dog collar choker, and I ended up getting a fight with this guy, and I had bashed him over the head with it. And a bunch of the guys from this house, they come out, knock me over the head with a 40 bottle, and I drop to the ground by my car. Once I become coherent, I proceed to get in my car, and at this point, somebody's trying to take the battery out, so I can't go anywhere. Well, somehow I managed to take off. I go down the road, get to a house a little ways, and the people, I'm knocking at the door. They open the door, let me in. They call the ambulance. Ambulance arrives, and I end up in the ER where I had stitches put in my head for what had just happened, and I'm given a second offense OWI. And so my life just continued like this, and it was just a living hell. Like, nothing in my life ever made sense. All it was violence and drugs and drinking and just trying to escape everything I did. And like I said, I just was digging myself into a deeper hole. In 2006, I end up getting my third OWI and having to sit 60 days in jail. So, it was like one OWI after another, and you would think I would have got the clue that, hey, I needed to stop drinking, but of course I never learned, and I just continued doing the same thing over and over. 2007 rolls around, and between 2006 and 2007, I managed to finally get a decent job. I was working at the Marshfield Clinic in Marshfield as a inventory asset control specialist and a appointment coordinator. I held this job for about a year and a half, and everything was going really good in my life. Things was looking up. I was making good money. And I decided one day that, hey, I want to go out and get wasted again. So I go to the bar. And when I say, like, get wasted, for me, getting wasted was so blackout drunk that I would end up in alleys, people's houses, places that I don't even remember how I got there. I've been kicked out of the bars by bouncers, and I would end up back in there. It was bad. Like, so anyways, doing good, go out, get wasted, end up driving drunk again, getting my fourth offense OWI. So I end up going to jail for 210 days on this OWI and being sentenced to probation. Well, during that stay, I'm still working at the job, and, everything seems to be going good. Get out on ankle bracelet, still have the job, things going well. One day I get a call, it was a contract job. I get a call from the contract agency, and they said, "We need to speak to you." And I'm thinking, okay, well, what did I do wrong? Because I've been told nothing but good things. Like, everyone kept saying, "You're doing really good at this job. We like you. We want to keep you." He talks to me and he says, "Well, your attention to detail isn't that great, so we have to let you go." And again, my whole world's just like turned upside down, because I thought I was doing so good, and I just didn't understand what I was doing, So at this point, back up a little bit, while I was in jail on that fourth offense, I decided I wanted to get breast implants. And I had told everyone in there, "Hey, when I get out, I'm going to get these breast implants, and you just wait and see." So I get out, in between the time I was working at the clinic and, got fired, I got the implants, and I was prescribed to Vicodin. Well, little did I know, Vicodin was addicting. So I started taking these pills, and everything just went completely numb. Like, all my problems went away. I felt no pain. And I was hooked. Like, instantly, I was hooked. So I continue using these pills till one day the doctor, from after having my surgery, says, "Look, we're not giving you anymore. You shouldn't be in pain anymore." And I was determined to find a way to get these pills. And I did. I ended up meeting another guy that I got involved in. He was also a pretty heavy cocaine user. So we would do pills and cocaine almost every day for a year straight, until, again, me being violent ended us to split up. We were fighting one night, and he'd walked out to his car, and I walked out to stop him, and I was holding onto the car, and he took off, and I didn't let go right away, and it flipped me into the road, breaking my collarbone and splitting my head open. Again, I ended up in the ER, stitches in my head, and I was laid up for a little while with this cast. He shows up one day with a gun. It was a 9mm handgun, and him and his buddy had threatened me that they would kill me. I never did press charges on him, and I'm thankful I didn't. But it wasn't necessarily his fault anyway, as I should have let go of that car. So him and I split up. Some more time goes by, and I end up meeting another guy who I met him on MySpace. We're going to fast forward a little bit. This is about 2008. So him and I become involved. I end up moving out of the house, moving in with him. And again, it seems like my life is finally it's finally straightening out. I get a job. I start going to school online for medical assisting. I'm doing, pretty decent, a lot better than I had ever been prior to this happening. I was contributing, paying for a place to live, paying for my own gas. But the only problem is I still wanted to drink, and I still wanted my pills. I wasn't using as much, but I was still using. So one of my favorite places to go was the strip club. I didn't dance at a strip club, but I liked to go to them. So we ended up at a strip club one night, and I was pulled up on the stage, and there was a couple guys in there that just kept buying drink after drink after drink. And they invited us over to their house for a party, and I insisted that we go. We end up at this house where there's 4 guys, the guy I'm dating, and I basically I'm telling these guys that I didn't want him there, the guy I was dating. Well, I ended up blacking out, and a video was made of all 4 of them basically having their way with me. When I came to the next day, my wallet was gone, my birth certificate was gone, pretty much my whole identity was gone, and I was bruised and bloody. So, at this point, the guy I was dating was extremely pissed because he blamed me for basically cheating on him, and this was causing problems in the relationship. So a little time goes by and I end up moving back home with my mom. And not only did I move out for the reason that I just couldn't take being around him anymore because I felt like nothing I could do was right, but his dad ended up robbing a pharmacy and getting sentenced to 6 years prison. So he had to help his mom out as well, and I wasn't about to live it with his mother. So I moved back home and thinking maybe, oh, this will be what's going to help me. Turns out the neighbor is terminally ill with cancer, and she's prescribed methadone and OxyContin. She don't really like the pills, so she just starts giving them to me. A little time goes by and I'm popping 80 oxys within a week. Once I'd run out, I'd get the methadone from her. It ended up to where I would have 160 pills gone within 2 days flat. This goes on for about a year. The whole time I'm still with this, me and this guy are still technically dating, but I'm living at home with my mom. I end up finding a guy on Facebook who seems like a good guy, pretty interesting, and I start hanging out with him. Him and I become a little involved, and after some time goes by, I just feel like this other guy was nothing but, the other guy I'd previously been with was nothing but a sugar daddy. And I just want to say right now that I apologize to all these people for everything that I have ever done. I feel so guilty, and I can't even begin to express how like hurt I am that I hurt these people, but I know today that's not who I am. So going on, I meet this other guy, and I go over there for, I want to say it's 2 days, and my phone dies. My mom, I guess, must have called the police on me because I was reported missing. She called the cops, they were looking for me, and one of the people they ended up calling had just recently lost his brother. They had found him deceased in a lake, and so he was not happy that this happened. He calls me up, he's freaking out at me, and he's like, why would you do this to me? You know what happened to my brother. Why would you even do this? And so I head back home, and when I get there, the cops were waiting outside for me. And I apologized to him, and I said, basically, I'm I'm like 30 some years old. I didn't think I had to tell my mom where I was going. Well, a little time rolls by, and the lady who had terminal cancer ends up passing away. God rest her soul. And I started becoming dope sick. Like, I was taking pills so often, not just opiates, but I mean, I was doing Xanax, Adderall, anything you can even imagine. It was bad. So I was turned on to heroin. And at the time I thought, lucky for me, I had just got a credit card. So what better way to pay for these drugs than with this credit card that I had just got? Well, mind you, I had just filed bankruptcy like a year prior to this. I have no job. No way I could pay this money back. I don't even know how I got a credit card. I buy a gram of heroin. And the gentleman who I had bought it from helps me inject the heroin because I was too scared. And from that point on, it was game over. Every waking moment for the next 3 years of my life literally was nothing but wake up, grab my phone, find my fix. How am I going to get this money? And then go get my drug, come home and get high. I wouldn't even shower. Like, if I took a shower twice a week, that would have been amazing. I smelled like stale cigarettes. The guy I had been living with, he's like, you're a disgrace. Look at yourself. You're a mess. At one point, I weighed 112 pounds. I'm a pretty skinny person as it is. I was basically starving myself. I would eat ramen occasionally, or if someone made me food. So, at this point, I was in this vicious cycle, and I just couldn't figure out, at this point, I honestly didn't even care how I was going to get out of it. I was so stuck in it. Like, it became an obsession of how I was going to get up and get my drugs. That's like all I could think about. I would get money from the guy who I was supposed to be dating on a daily basis. I would drive every day to get $300, and if I wasn't getting $300 from him, I'd be getting money from other people. If I wasn't getting money from other people, I was stealing. I went to Walmart. I stole computers. I stole just anything you can imagine. I would rob people's houses. I was a disgrace. Like, thinking about it now, I would have hated myself. Like, and I really did. I did hate myself. I didn't love myself. And all I kept hearing from my mother was, I hate you. I can't stand you. And I just wish you would die. So, like I said, this goes on for quite some time, and a day comes when I'm with who would be my best friend at the time. And we had went to pick up some drugs, which at the time was fentanyl and heroin. Went to a parking lot to get high, and next thing I know, her head's in my lap. I'm like, wake up. And I kept pushing her, and like, I'm freaking out because I don't know what to do. I'm already high. I can't even think straight. I start driving, and she's still not moving. And I get a little way, and at the time I wasn't grateful of it, but today I am. I look in my rearview mirror, and there's blueberries and cherries. I'm getting pulled over by the police. So, cop gets out, walks up to the window, sees her in my lap, And he immediately knows. He knew. So they call the ambulance. They rush her to the ER. And they say, well, back up a little bit. We had brought her 2 kids with us. Her 2 little boys watched us get high and seen his mother overdose in my lap. So the cop told me, get these kids home. And he let me go. Like, I don't even understand why he let me go. He did. Got in my car, took off. I want to say I literally made it home in 15 minutes on what would have been a 45-minute drive. Maybe that's exaggerating. That's what it felt like. Anyways, got those kids home to her parents, and I walk in the door. And by this time, her mom found out, and her mom was literally about to kill me. Like, if it wasn't for her stepdad pulling her mom off me, I probably wouldn't have made it out of that house alive. She ends up going to rehab, and I go to see her up there. And, of course, she's like, this place is really great. The people are really nice, and she's like, maybe you should check it out. In my heart, I don't feel like I was ready to quit using at that time. But I figured, why not try something? Something has to give. I can't keep living this way. I can't keep figuring out how I'm going to get money to get high. I can't keep robbing people. I'm going to end up dead. I mean, at this point, I was basically a walking zombie. So a little time goes by, and I also need to figure out, how I'm going to let my mom know that I'm a heroin junkie. Like, I don't know how she didn't know. I looked like crap. I smelled like crap. And I had track marks up and down my arms. Well, one day I end up sick. I had used so much heroin that I, was literally vomiting. I was throwing up so profusely, and I'd become dehydrated. I had to get to the ER. So I call my mom. I say, Mom, I need to go to the ER. Something's wrong with me. Get up there, have her wait in the waiting room, and I get in, and the nurses basically say, do you want your mom to come back? And I'm like, yeah, I need to do this, because I had kind of told them, already what was going on. She comes in, and I start crying, and I look at her, and I show her my hands and my arms, and I said, Mom, I gotta tell you something. I said, I'm addicted to heroin. She looked at me with disgrace, and literally, just imagining that face to this day makes me feel so bad. So, fast forward, time goes by, I get out of treatment, relapse, end up getting a 5th offense OWI. They sentenced me for 9 months in jail, and during that time, I had, before the sentencing, I end up getting bailed out of jail, getting in trouble with, robbing my the guy that I had not been living with, but the guy that I originally was dating, robbing his house. So, that happens, end up back in jail, and then I end up getting bailed out of jail again. So, basically, just to kind of make this a little short here, I end up getting sentenced on 9 months after a good time, sit that time in jail, and during that time, I come to know my higher power. And I figure out during that jail stay, what can I do when I get out to make my life better? How am I going to change my ways. Finally, I get released, and 2 weeks later, I end up relapsing, ending up in the ER with a deadly blood infection called sepsis, which almost took my life. Continued using for about 5 more months, when one day I was driving around in my car with about 38 grams of meth, because between the time before I went to jail and when I went to jail, I had become also addicted to meth. So, relapsed on meth when I got out from the use of a dirty needle. And that's basically kind of where I really started thinking even more like, wow, I already see my life going back to where it used to be. Something's got to change. So one thing I kept was my faith. And through that faith and through online groups like Choose Freedom, in fact, Sober is the New High, shout out to Tyler Allen Countryman, he inspired me to do what he was doing, to start sharing my story, to help others. So one day I woke up and I literally quit cold turkey, no joke. And this would have been December 5th, 2015. I'm over a year clean and sober now, and I have to give thanks to my higher power and to all those people who have supported me from that day through online groups. And I just want to spread the hope to other people that we can recover. There is hope at the end of the tunnel. So basically, what I want you all to do, though, is I just want you to know that you can do this. It's hard and it's a struggle, but it's possible. Here I am today, clean and sober after everything I've been through, and I'm able to get on Choose Freedom and share this story. Words can't even describe how thankful I am. I also want to give a shout out to a couple other people. Jamie Smith, I want to thank you for going live last week and sharing your story. Because of you, I was inspired to get on here. I want to give shout outs to Raina. Love you, girl. You have inspired me to continue my writing. And I just want to let you know a little bit about what helped me. When I started becoming clean and sober, I started writing, I started journaling, I started blogging. Getting your emotions out on paper, even on the computer, on the phone, whatever it may be, has really helped me heal. Don't let it build up inside you. When you let something build inside, it eats at you. Just keep sharing with people, reach out to people. I've also, in my recovery, I have some things that I have accomplished, which I never thought I could. I got my occupational license back. I was engaged. I've become married. I've been married now for about 4 months. I completed my AODA treatment. I have volunteered programs to help inmates at jail so that they could see that we do recover, and that through the use of cognitive behavioral thinking skills, that you can change your way of thinking, and you can push through the hard times. And today I am also the owner and founder of a website called ChooseHopeNotDope.com. I also manage a group, Hope Fiend Addiction Recovery Poetry, where I want to get others involved. I want others to to share their stories through their writing, through their poetry, so that others can see that we do recover. And the more that we can get people speaking about this, the more lives that we can save. There's probably much more to my story that's out there, but I just want you all to know that through my writing, I have become involved with a high school where I will be speaking to students, which is great. This was like a huge step for me coming live, so going in front of students is going to be a lot harder, but I'll be sharing my story and spreading hope there. But yeah, I encourage you all to find something that you're passionate about. Keep your mind focused and busy on, the more positive things in life, and not not let those negative thoughts impair you. You are all worth it. We're all worthy of being clean. We're all worthy of being sober. If I could do it, anybody can. There's plenty others out there that are living proof as well. So I do thank you all for joining me tonight, and I just want you to know we do recover. A couple other things that I wanted to that I didn't touch on real quick were the meetings. Try to get to meetings. Like, there's no right or wrong way of which program works. It's going to be different for everybody, but for me, my higher power, going to meetings, reaching out to others, associating with positive people who are clean and sober, and removing the toxic and negative people from my life. These are ways that have helped me. Find what is right for you and use it. Like, if you find it, stick to it. Once you get out of the cycle, it might not be easy, but it's worth it. Keep pushing forward and, never look back. So yes, thank you all, and I love you all so much. Thank you, Choose Freedom. Everybody, if you want to, you can check out my group called Choose Hope Not Dope, and join Jamie Smith's group, The Demon Named Addiction. Both very great groups. And with that being said, thank you, Lord, for another day above ground. Thank you all, and much love.